same problem.
It's just never ending.
I know.
All
I
the
know. All right. And now we wait for our friends to join us.
excellent.
Welcome to Story Time with Angela and Stephanie.
Oh boy. Topic: what are you making for dinner?
I don't know if that would be better or worse than what we're actually covering. Jury's out. We'll get the reviews from everyone afterwards. You know, feel free to throw tomatoes in the. There's a tomato emoji in Google Meet now. I don't know if we have it. Do we have the? Oh, we do. We have the tomato emoji. So throw one of those guys in the chat if you get tired of us. But you won't, because we're a lot of fun. So let's get into it. We've got a good amount of folks who have started. I see some friendly faces. Welcome. If you're new around here, that is lovely too. We're happy to see you. So yes, we are talking about next fall, even though we are in the middle of yield season, because we love you and we want you to be successful. So here we are. This is going to be a super practical, informal conversation. If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have experiences that you would like to share, please drop those into the chat. We don't like just speaking into the void. We actually do want to hear from you. And so we are hoping that this will be an opportunity for you to get a little bit ahead in your planning while your competitors might be distracted by, things like yield. You can do both. We believe in you. So let's jump in to housekeeping before we get started. These are questions that we always get asked, so I want to be clear up front. Yes, this webinar is being recorded. You will receive a copy of this in your inbox tomorrow. And if you have a question, as I mentioned, you don't have to wait until the end. We will take some at the end, but feel free to drop that into the chat or the Q&A. I will be keeping an eye on both throughout this conversation. And then lastly, in pre-registration, we did have someone note that they were representing a K-12 school and wanted to hear about some K-12 applications along the way. So I will be sure to speak to those as we go in case that person's on with us, or we have some K-12ers who check out the recording later on and want to dig into that info. So let's dive right in. Why are we talking about next fall, the next cycle, right now at the end of May? And the TLDR is, if your institution only gets into the conversation with prospective students late, you're already behind. So we know that both for high school students and K-12 parents, they're searching on different timelines, but all of the things on this screen still really do come into play for both audiences. This data is from our friends at Manifera and a study that they did on how students search for colleges last year. Two big things jumped out at me, one being that a pretty high percentage, 62% of prospective students switch channels while they're searching. So they're looking at your website, but they're also looking at your social channels and AI search and Reddit and niche and all of the things, and looking for continuity between what they're seeing on those different channels. For a K-12 standpoint, very similar. Website, niche, boarding school review, private school review, great schools, you name it. They're looking at all of those places and trying to see, okay, does what's happening in the streets match what I'm seeing on this institution's website? They're looking for that validity there. And so they're switching channels, they're looking around, they're not necessarily clicking on paid ads, right? Because marketing is marketing, they recognize that. And so you have to be ready for this multi-channel search. It's not going to be a one and done situation. And the earlier you show up, the more capacity you're giving yourself to influence that intent. Now, go ahead, Stephanie, chime in.
I was just going to throw in that I think that array of channels changes as they work through, being a prospect or a stealth applicant or an admitted student or a confirmed student in our case. So one of the things that we see is a tool that you didn't mention that I know you're a fan of too, is Zemi. So at the yield stage, we see a whole lot going on with our admitted student community on Zemi. That doesn't really happen in that way at the top of the funnel. There's stuff happening at the top of the funnel, but it's a little broader, a little bit more dispersed, a little less intense. And when we get them in Zemi at that admitted stage, that's a really important channel for us to be paying attention to.
That's a great point. Great call out. The other piece is that Google, while it's still important, it's still the dominating search tool, especially in initial discovery. It's not the only game in town, right? So while these students are moving around and looking at all of these different areas, they're also looking for really authentic and useful content. That's why they're not just relying on the website. They want to hear from other students. They want that what's it really like information. And so that's always going to be your marketing content, right? It's not to say that like we shouldn't be putting these things out. We definitely need all of these things, but you have to be mindful of all of these other areas. We're going to show you some examples along the way to support that. But Stephanie, is this also tracking what you've been seeing on the institution side?
100%. We've been a little anxious about organic search as a source for connection. Probably some of you, if you're paying attention to that metric, are also seeing a decrease. That decrease has slowed a bit, and we're doing our level best to track as much AI as possible. And in a little bit, I think I'm going to be sharing some of the strategies that we're using to magnetize our site for AI. But I have seen kind of a lessening, maybe about 8 to 10 months ago, looking at organic search results for our sites, plural. I was seeing as much as a 17% decline in organic traffic, and that was chilling. I looked last week and it was just a 6% decline. So something's happening. All kinds of things are happening. So I'm taking a little bit of comfort, but we're not resting on our laurels, and we're really working strategically to learn as much as we can about what is appealing to AI and what we can do to magnetize is maybe the hashtag for this.
I think that's actually such a great call out, Stephanie, because this is one of those, oh, maybe I'm not alone moments, right? So if you are either on with us live or listening to the recording, it is very important for you to understand, because we've been paying a lot of attention to this internally at Halda. If your organic search traffic is down, one, it's not just you. This is a broad issue that's it's happening across higher ed. It's happening across all sorts of other industries for a variety of reasons. One is, yes, AI search is becoming increasingly popular, but an outcome of AI search is zero-click search, which means that people are looking to get information in as few clicks as possible. And so when AI does surface something, using the AI overviews for Google as an example, the more they get from that overview, the less likely and the less necessary it is for them to click through to a website. And so zero-click search has been happening for quite some time. There's a company called SparkToro that does some really great research around this. We'll include a link to that in the resources that we share with you tomorrow. But this is something that's been going on for some time. It's been impacting organic search visibility for brands across industries, as I mentioned. And so don't get discouraged if this is something that you're seeing. This is definitely part of a bigger trend, and it just underscores the importance of being able to increase your institution's visibility in other ways. One other thing that we actually found out when I was digging into my own analytics earlier this year is that there were some pretty big updates in Google in February and March that probably also gave you a little bit of a hit. So again, if that's something that you saw and you're starting to recover from, which would make a lot of sense, you're not by yourself. It's not that you're doing something wrong. But again, it just means that you have to make sure that you find ways to be visible elsewhere. Really a great point.
100%. It's a lot of different things.
So many different things. So here's why we are covering this now, because the more proactive you can be, the better. And you really do actually have to get ahead of things, even while you're still actively working on yields. We're hearing from partners and prospects all the time, actually, lately, who have gotten on the other side of May 1, and they're like, wait a minute, things are not looking the way that we thought they were going to look a few months ago. So it's an opportunity to take advantage of this longer lead time in higher ed. It can be a short decision process or a long decision process, depending on, what's going on with the individual student, of course. But we are seeing that younger students are starting to think about college much sooner. Once they get to that point, they're applying to so many institutions. So getting ahead of things is really, really important. I think it's only going to become increasingly important over time. So having that early stage messaging that can speak to students who are still exploring and not necessarily in that active, okay, I have my short list and I'm comparing and applying stage, and their parents, honestly, is something that is just going to become more and more important. Mm-hmm. Stephanie, did you have anything to add before we jump to the framework?
I think keeping parents in mind all the time, families, and that's the phrase that we use very intentionally, because the significant Native American indigenous populations that are a really important part of our campus community, family is essential. But it's hard, it's hard to stay in the lines with family, and it's hard to make sure that you're using the right channels and the right message in the right moment. So yeah, I think that has to be a part of the mix, especially in yield season, which I know we're going to get to real quick, but when isn't it yield season? Yeah. So anyway.
That's a great question. Very good question. I think that there are probably a lot of folks on the call who are feeling that right now. So this is the quick framework that we are going to walk through, starting with start earlier than feels comfortable. If it feels weird, then it's right. That's when we want you to get started. And that's going to come down to content. Then we're going to talk a little bit about building some engagement that scales with a combination of automation and AI. Of course, we're going to talk about the AI of it all a little bit. And then fixing your handoffs. If you read our blog, you will see that this is something that we talk about a lot, but that operational continuity is really important. So it is something we can't say enough. It's actually true across all three of these things, but having your operations really tight is extremely important. And Stephanie's got a great example of that we're going to walk through in a bit. So framework item number 1, starting sooner with your content means you don't want to forget about those younger students, and you want to bring the parents along earlier. So creating some awareness level content like blog posts that can speak to those audiences, but you can also factor them in with major pages, campus life pages, financial aid explainers, student story content. We talked about how much students are constantly craving that authenticity, and because they're not clicking on paid ads as much as you might want them to, that kind of content marketing can help with early organic visibility too, which again, we've got some great examples of that that Stephanie is going to share. But having those Q&A formats and things that are responsive to the types of questions that they're going to be asking as they're jumping into AI search, as they're starting to explore the college application process, those are things that are going to be really useful. And Stephanie, I know when we were having our planning session, you had talked about some UGC work that you're doing with alumni. Do you want to speak to that a little bit before I get into some examples?
Yes, we're piloting a project to develop a process and flow to connect with alums to start with. We might be expanding eventually, giving them some prompts based on an intake interview that we can do remotely to have them videotape themselves. How 1988 of me.
Record.
Record. You're going to be doing a lot of that on my behalf. To record themselves answering specific questions that we've curated in partnership with them. So process-wise, we identify potential subjects. We kind of pregame with them. Hey, is this something you're comfortable with? What kind of tech do you have? What kind of agency do you have in using that tech? And then encouraging them to do those recordings and send them to our team, where we'll do some production on our side to kind of edit and put things together and give them a chance to review and approve. And then probably in the intake interview, we're getting some ideas about what channels we might use to facilitate sharing that. So, LinkedIn could potentially be something, Instagram always, Facebook quite often, here, there, and everywhere, as well as directly on our YouTube channel, which is becoming a real centerpiece for the team.
That's great.
We're in early moments, and our pilot subject is kind of a ringer because she's also an Instagram influencer as a thrift store aficionado. So we think that our first play here is going to be a success and a good example then to share with other folks that we might encourage to participate in this program.
I love that. And that's actually pro tip, guys. Don't sleep on YouTube if you're worried about AI search visibility. YouTube is, I think it's kind of, it's less, it's under the radar. It's become a little bit of a sleeper. It's not as much a part of the day-to-day conversation, but it can be really useful for that perspective.
I am coming to recognize that in my household, which is now myself and my husband, we're empty nesters, but I know my children also are on YouTube watching videos.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time. And anytime I'm trying to get my husband to help with a new house project, he's like, well, I got to go spend some time on YouTube first.
Your husband should talk to my husband because the same thing is happening in my house.
Yeah. So
yeah, don't forget about YouTube. It's very, very useful for a lot of different reasons. So here we have just a few examples of some student created content, starting with a couple from one of our partners, Lynn University. Lori, I know you're on, so hello and surprise. We're using some of your Instagram examples, and I will be linking to all of these, by the way, in the email that you received tomorrow. But starting on the left, and it might be a little hard to see, but you'll get the full screen when we share the slides with you tomorrow. We have a classic day in the life style video with a dorm tour. Really cute caption about your dorm having main character energy, and you can see some great engagement there. And then on the right, this is a promo for an event called 60 Questions in 60 Minutes, which was a live chat with students, faculty, admission counselors, different constituents across campus, talking about next steps, housing, campus life, just reacting to questions from the audience, which I think is a lovely idea. And for our K-12ers who might be listening live or to the recording, you can absolutely steal either of these ideas. Boarding schools in particular are great for space tours, the dorm tour, the dining hall, different buildings on campus that people may not necessarily have the means or the time to come see physically, or they're just kind of feeling things out, trying to get an idea of whether or not they might fit in a different community. Those are great candidates for that type of content. And then for the 60 questions in 60 minutes, there's no reason at all why you can't do this. If you have older students, definitely get them involved, those middle and high schoolers. If you have younger students, bring on the parents. Parents are definitely happy to hear from other parents in both cases. But there's no reason why you can't do something like this.
I love
And
it.
then this one was fun, Stephanie. So this is from Shenandoah University, which is another partner. I've actually used a version of this tactic on tours where I talk to people about not just showing a space, but showing how students experience a space. But this is the first time that I've seen it in a photographic format. And I thought it was really interesting where it's a gallery of images. And again, I'll share the link to this post tomorrow. But the top is the more sort of stock style photo. And then the bottom is a picture of how students actually experience it. And so I shared this example to show that if you are struggling with getting student generated content, you can still have student oriented content that you have a little bit more control over that still shows how students are experiencing different places on your campus. So this is a fun little example. And again, K-12, higher ed, no reason why anybody couldn't grab this idea.
I love this. Something to go look up on the University of Montana Instagram channel along these lines is something that our student social media team produced, and it was finals week. And the theme was walking around campus finals week. And it just showed these two guys, they're wonderful, Aaron and Taylor, just, kind of behaving like the way that students do, closing doors on people inadvertently and just academic zombies walking around just trying to get to their final exam or hand their paper in on time or whatever. It's just, it really charmed me, and I'm sure it's still findable out there. So
I love that. I'll look for it and see if I can link to it in the notes for tomorrow.
I'll try for that too. I might know someone who can help us.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, don't be afraid to show some of that real life experience. That's the stuff that really resonates with prospective students. So jumping to step 2 in our framework, this one is all about personalization. It's the word that we've been saying for a while. We like individualization more at Halda. But this has become the biggest conversion driver, not just in higher ed, but just about every other industry. The more you can personalize your content, the more you're going to be able to move people forward in a process. Everyone that we talk to is being asked to do more with budgets that are either flat or reduced and smaller teams. So the ability to scale this is also really, really important. So simple example, a student who's interested in biology shouldn't get the same follow-up as someone who might be looking into campus housing or support for first-gen students. You want to make sure that people are being met where they are, not just in the process, but in the topics that they care about. Obviously, that impacts your segmentation as well. And since we talked about AI search and how important that visibility is, Stephanie is going to share some AI search goodies from Montana and how that can surface some really great content for prospective students and families at the awareness stage.
And I'm going to get there, but in the previous point, just for a second, I wanted to say one of the cool things that the team is building are content snippets to go into individualized email campaigns, so that when we know a person is interested in biology, living on campus, and maybe the telemark team or women's rugby club sports, that we have assets that we can just grab automatically and put into a message. It's really lovely. It's a long time coming, but I'm really excited about what that means to do exactly what you just said about making it as relevant and germane and interesting to the individual. And I think that part of that is also not just pandering to the stuff that we know about them, but maybe being brave and also introducing things that they don't know that they should be interested in. That's where our rich campus traditions come in, and how they might want to know about when to look for the pumpkin on the spire of Main Hall, and maybe get involved with the mysterious person who places it there. I don't know. Or where to find Monty, our mascot. Things, yeah. But what we're looking at here is a pilot that my team is running. And normally I don't show my cards when we're in pilot stage, but friends, you got to get on board. So the job at hand is to magnetize our academic program pages. Marketing owns those website pages and the resources that we use, Program Finder out of Squiz, to push people to them. And we wanted to make sure that our program pages are product pages. Come on, we're all marketers in the broad sense. We can say product. Our product pages are coming up fast and first. And so we entered into a pilot with Dean Libby Metcalf from the Franke College of Forestry and Conservation. She might be my favorite dean. I'm not allowed to say, but she is. And College of Science, which is a new college for the university. And we convinced them, twisted their arms, to participate in this pilot where we used AI to help us curate some intro paragraphs with really, really focused keyword strategy, and then also to curate 3 to 5 FAQs that directly represent questions that are being asked of AI and search right now. We put those on the forward-facing page. You see an example here from Geosciences. And then on the back end, in the metadata, we implemented something, a schema that's specific to this particular strategy. So this is a little bit of a lift. It's not awful, but in the midst of all the other things that we have going on, a little tricky, hence piloting. And we are just maybe a month into this strategy being implemented. And if you go to the next panel, you'll see a really exciting result, which is that AI is finding and using, in some cases verbatim, the content that we produced. And, not everybody knows and cares about all of the higher ed institutions in Montana, but we sure do. And we like being first. We sure like being first. And so we're pretty happy with this early return. We've also got a new dashboard coming, which I'm not going to show you, which goes even deeper to see how often these pages fired in those settings, and then what happened afterwards with clicks. So this is a play you need in your playbook. And I know, for us, we have a bazillion academic programs just on the undergrad side, and then a really big raft of graduates. So this is going to be a lift for us to get everything done and buttoned up and make sure faculty feel comfortable with what we've written for them. But I'm committed to it, because I'm quoting The Mandalorian. This is the way.
That's great. This is such a cool example. And I love the early results that you're seeing. Yeah. Follow-up question: how are you going to prioritize which programs you focus on next?
Well, for the rest of the raft, we're going ahead full steam with those programs that we have high level of confidence in the accuracy of the content, and swinging hard at those to get them up and ready. And then as we're going through, sifting through everything, and we're finding those that need a little tune-up or some corrections. I don't know about you all in the audience, but it is astonishing how academic programs kind of shift and change, and faculty sometimes like to change the names of things. And then there's stuff to be done with accrediting bodies, and for us, our state system, OCHI, likes to know about those things. So we have some things to work out there. So I can't say that 100% of our programs are ready for this primetime play, but probably 80-20 rule, 80%. And we're going to get those up the rest of this summer and into the fall, and then do some mitigation work.
Love it. Love it. Great process. Great process. So last but not least in our framework, fix those handoffs. So if you read our blog, you will know that we talk a lot about making sure that there is continuity between departments and teams, that everyone's holding hands and moving things through together, because if you don't, even really great campaigns can fail when the handoff is slow, it's unclear, it's uncoordinated. So you want to make sure you know who owns a lead, how quickly responses are happening, what happens after that first click or inquiry or other interaction. Because if you have some leaks in your funnel, as you know, it's really hard to get that momentum back. And we don't want you to end up in that situation. So now Stephanie's going to talk about what we co-named the DIY plus approach that Montana is taking with student search specifically, to see a look at how some folks are tackling this operations issue.
Yeah. Well, without going into my checkered past, let me just share that before my life at the University of Montana, and I just celebrated my 5-year anniversary about a month ago, and I'm so proud to be a Grizz. I spent a lot of time working for a big platform company, and then a really big consulting company that I don't think they call themselves that anymore, but are in competition with other big companies that do a lot of things for everybody and like to take over the business of student search. And last year, my partner, Drew Ness, over at the enrollment side of the house, he's the AVP for enrollment, or Chief Enrollment Officer. He came to my marketing crew and said, "Hey, I have a challenge for you. We'd like to bring search in-house." And we said, "Huh? What does that mean to you?" And we came to terms, and we came to agreement that what we're doing is a DIY plus playbook. So the DIY, what are we doing ourselves? We are now managing internally our name buys, our prospect outreach, our digital prospecting strategy and creative, and our follow-up conflows, of course. And all of that is happening in-house through tools like Halda, tools like Slate, and using the resources that we have in hand, and not sending millions of dollars out the door to do things and see lackluster results. And for my mind, also seeing that the creative that's produced by those entities is often homogenous and looks like every other school that's going out the door. I don't know if you spent any time with the University of Montana brand, but we stand out. And we must and we will continue to stand out in our brand and be very clear and specific about who we are. And doing this DIY plus play gives us the agency to do that. And not only do that, but to continue to put new stuff in the marketplace. We've just recently added a new brand expression for our undergrad market called the Montana Way, which has these pillars underneath it that are really rich and dynamic and absolutely true about who we are. And so that's the benefit of going the DIY. The plus means that sometimes we do need vendor partnerships. And so landing page experiences like this one that we're showing on the screen right now, part of our big go-to-market strategy in digital campaigns. So meta, tons of meta, tons of paid search, some of it broad and generic, and some of it program specific. And also we are on connected television, which no one was more surprised than me at how well that is producing for us. I am astonished, and this landing page has been a really important part of it. So if you know me, you know I like data, and I can't talk to you about something I'm doing without some data. And so this particular landing page, a kind of broad, generic one, that we put together for these digital campaigns brought in more than 100,000 views and netted us 5,000 inquiries at a conversion rate of 4.21%, which that's real
Thank
money.
goodness.
That's real money right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So the plus is a really important piece, Halda, I've mentioned, Zimi, I've mentioned, I've got some in-web partners on, as I mentioned, Squiz for our custom search and our program finder. That has to be a part of it. You can't really, take your ball and go home and do it all internally, but you can make choices and you can be brave and you can trust your team and you can pilot things and be really intentional about measurement and be very facile in seeing when a strategy isn't paying off and turn that ship. And that was one of the biggest challenges that I had with some of the kind of bigger student search partners that, gosh, in your monthly review, you see, oh, something really didn't work. Well, a month? Where are you in yield season when you've let a month go by? That's trouble. That's
an eternity. A month is an eternity in yield season.
But now our partner in digital ad placement, they're based in Missoula, and sometimes they even come over and shake us by the shoulders and say, "Did you see this? What are we doing? We gotta update this creative. We gotta get more creative in the bank. We need to do these things." And so we don't have to sit and wait for results. We can act on them. And it's hard, and my team has been pushed to limits, but man, we are also so excited to, look at what's going to happen this fall and very proud of the work.
I love that. So Stephanie, talk to us about GrizzQuiz. I love this.
Yeah. So one of the strategies is to get more students in the funnel earlier. And so thinking about the mindset of high school freshmen, sophomores, juniors, we decided to experiment with a play, a persona play, to get them to tell us more about themselves in ways that felt interesting, where they learned something and they also got something. And the got something is the answer to the question, what kind of Grizz are you? And so we use some common personas that we have that we know about prospective students and thinking about their lives on campus, students that are deeply interested in the environment and those that are interested in service and those that are interested in social justice and those that are looking for the classic kind of TV movie, big college experience, always at the football game, on the cheer squad, or in our case, on the zoo crew, which is the student-led, they're the student-led hype people. They're amazing. So coming up with a fun quiz that would get us inquiries earlier so that we can have longer conversation and paying off with something that intrigued them and gets them to come back and return. So you want to know how it worked?
I'd love to.
Okay. Our conversion for GrizzQuiz, 17.25%.
My goodness.
I know.
Clap it out for Stephanie, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah. So, copy and steal everything. Good job, GrizzQuiz. It was really fun to whip it up, put it together with our partners at Halda and a lot of input from my creative teams, and really proud of it.
Love it. It looks great. It's one of my favorite use cases for our landing pages. So fun. So as we continue and wrap, if you are tempted to put off any of the things on this list, please don't let these things happen to you. So make sure that your comm flows are timely and that you are factoring in those earlier stage students who might be engaging even if they're not application ready. So if you're using strategies like the fabulous quiz we just showed you to draw in those earlier stage students, make sure that you have follow-up communications for them that make sense. Those could look like a variety of different things, but sequences that help point to some next step content. You could do some rotating nurture flows about outcomes, academics, student life, parent-focused email tracks on value, support services, safety. Just make sure that you're factoring these audiences into your comm flows. Then the website, same thing. We alluded to this earlier. You really want to make sure that there's content on your website that speaks to earlier stage audiences. This is not to say that things that you already have won't work, right? Those student stories, cost and value explainer content, how to choose a college content, those are things that can work together. So everybody's got student stories and outcome-oriented things on their websites, right? That can work with maybe just a few net new items that are for kids that are a little bit earlier in the process that can support them. And then because we have that multi-channel verification, make sure that there's some consistency and that you've got a nice eye on your broader digital presence, including things you may not necessarily own, just so you can be aware of some consistency gaps that might exist between marketing-owned content and more democratically created content on the internet.
Well put.
And this is just, I won't go through this, but this is a handy thing that you can hold on to when we share this deck with you tomorrow that just breaks down some examples of both website content and CommFlow content that you can use for people in different stages, including way out in discovery when they're still kind of noodling on what they might be doing next. So here are 5 things for you to move around in your mind for the summer, right? Hopefully these things are fairly easy. This is not a full wholesale rebuild of your strategy that we're talking about for you. This is just a small list of targeted fixes that might be able to help you improve your 2027 pipeline now. So auditing your current funnel stage by stage, including the audience that we're talking about today, figuring out where your engagement might be starting a little bit too late, refreshing early stage content if you have it, we hope you do, and your calls to action, reviewing your handoffs as we talked about, and thinking about one AI or personalization thing to test, which can be very simple. Feel free to reach out to Stephanie or to us or a friend that you meet in the audience if you want to talk about that a little bit more. And one thing that I wanted to call out, it came up when Stephanie and I were talking, and she alluded to the Montana way earlier, but none of this matters if you don't have a solid sense of your brand. So that is actually the first thing that I would do a little bit of soul searching around before you start working on all of these other things, because that's going to come through absolutely everywhere else on this list and in everything else that you do going into this next cycle. Stephanie, do you have anything you want to add on the Montana way and how it influences the kind of work that we're talking about today?
Yeah, I think that the important part of a brand expression, so it's not a sub-brand, but it's a way that we specifically talk to undergrad students and their families, is that you have pillars that are relevant, that are meaningful, and that answer the questions or the hesitations that they have. So one of the key pillars is for us in the Montana way is outcomes. It's what do you get? Montanans are some of the most practical people in the world and amazing people. And certainly those characteristics extend well beyond the state borders. But we know to talk to and recruit folks from the great state of Montana, we need to show them the money, meaning what is the ROI? And so that's a really important thing that is part of the Montana way, is that we do practical, meaningful preparation, inspirational preparation for students to find their path and their way and all of those other metaphors. Brand is really important. And if your tagline is an academic excellence and a place of beauty, then maybe you're starting in a different place. You need to really, really make something very distinctive and specific, and something that's also ready to grow. We launched What's Made in Montana is Remaking the World in 2022. And Remaking the World is still very much at the center of who we are as an institution. But the Montana Way answers with great specificity, how do we do that? And it's working.
I love that. The how is so important. That's the piece that gets lost quite a bit.
It does, and it takes some bravery. Because it can't be everything. It can't be everything. You just have to own who you are and go forward.
Yeah. Own who you are and who you're not. It's the latter piece that's really hard for people. It's really hard. It's because you don't want to, you inherently turn people away when you're clear about what you don't offer. But that's part of the process. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be. And that's part of the process for all of us as consumers. You're looking for a new car, you might pine after that really, really nice Audi, whatever the neighbor has, maybe. But is that in your budget? And is that realistic?
Right.
Can I take the Audi to the horse barn and it's filthy all the time? Like, I don't know.
I mean, you could. I don't think you'd want to, though. I wouldn't.
I could get up the hill, but it doesn't.
That's perfect. So we will leave you with some parting questions to chew on before we get to questions from you. The first is to think about where in your funnel might things be starting too late, because that's a little bit of honesty to go into the summer that you might want to think about. That'll be part of that audit that we referenced earlier. If you could change one thing in June, what would it be? This is to make this all nice and achievable for you. Don't try to do all the things, but take it one step at a time. And then if you're not using AI already, think about some ways that you can use it to scale your engagement without losing authenticity. Getting your AI search, AEO, GEO, there's too many acronyms, but they all mean the same thing. Getting that together is a massive step forward in that work. So if you have not started that journey already, it is past time. Definitely look into that. Manifera, the company that I referenced earlier with the data, they're great friends of ours. We highly recommend them. They are absolutely fabulous for resources on this, as well as supporting institutions through this. But whoever you choose, definitely start working on that, because it's going to make a really big difference, especially as you're dealing with some of these organic search issues that we talked about earlier.
I know I talked a lot about being DIY, but I met the folks from Manifera just a year ago at EDU Web Conference, and man, they're smart and good people and
lovely people.
Worth the time.
Yes, definitely talk to them. Check them out. I love referring to our friends when we can. So before we get to questions from the audience, if you have them, we had just a couple that came through in registration. I'm actually going to punt both of these to Stephanie, because I think she'll have the best perspective on these as a practitioner. So the first one is, we talked a little bit about this, but do you have any tips for getting quality student-created content? Is there a specific type of student content or specific way you have used it that has made the biggest impact? I'll simplify, in engaging students.
Yes. So before I answer, I want to give all props to Emma Dorman, who is our director of social media at the University of Montana. She is genius. And one of the examples of her genius is that at our orientation, we have a Big Sky program, and students can choose a lot of different experiences to have during that week that they're coming in early on. And I attended this last year, and it just knocked my socks off. One of the experience options was for our newly minted students to come in and workshop social media content that we actually put on our channels minutes after they were officially Grizz students. And so it was a really great blend of teaching and coaching by Emma and her team, and Karen Schlater, who's our experience maven for the institution, part of marketing, working on experience, and sent them out. I think there were about 30 of them. They divided up into teams and sent them out on campus. One enterprising team, they all had scooters. So that was smart, very efficient, because, getting across campus is a little tricky.
Yeah.
And cut into their production time. Sent them out, gave them some rough frameworks, and then brought them back in, gave them production time, and then we would look at their products and talk about them as a community. And the best ones got some airtime. And that was a really great experience. It is a thinly, it's not even veiled, way for us to get our hands on then some really, really great student interns to work with us. And some of the best and brightest have continued on with us year over year. And one of them, Erin, you'll see in many examples of our social media content. They just have a really good sense of not just the lingo, the vibes, whatever. It's something that a middle-aged woman shouldn't even be saying out loud. But they know what's funny, and they know what will feel real and what will feel like, marketing capital M. And so our student employees, and Emma manages them beautifully and inspires and coaches. And we love our student interns because they are really great test subjects for, hey, does this smell like something good? So I really love that team, and I'm really proud of what we do there.
That's great. Love that answer. This one's real simple. Engaging format.
Well,
but this is important. This is really, and I like to allow people to show up as they do in the questions. So I thought this was pretty clear, but hey, let's hear them.
I think being brave and taking chances and asking unexpected questions instead of state your name, give us an email address right now, are the way to win somebody over and make them curious about what you're up to. So interesting questions. What kind of Grizz are you is our play in that area. But, Halda, I think, has been a leader in this, in some of the early demos that we saw when we were onboarding, about just asking students to say, what are you afraid of?
Mm-hmm.
What's keeping you? What could keep you from achieving your goals? What doesn't make sense to you? Where do you think you're going to struggle with the process of exploring and choosing the right school?
Yeah.
I think having that kind of authenticity in a conversation that you might actually have with a student, if you've got a neighbor who's got a kid who's in high school and thinking about school, you'd probably have a pretty candid, a little bit more vulnerable conversation with them. Don't be afraid of that. Try it. Pilot it. My favorite thing to do.
Love it.
A really good idea. A good idea that sparkles when you talk about it in a group. Just put it out there. Let's see what happens. Measure it. Don't forget that you did it. Measure it and see, oh, well, this was a clunker. Yeah. Just do it.
I love that. Just do it. Just do it. And that's actually the phrasing of those questions. We have a couple pieces that we've done about our shifts framework, which is all about how we coach our partners on asking questions in forms and other content. So I'll make sure that I include a link to that as well in the resources, because I think that'll be really helpful to folks as they're starting to think through, what should my forms look like? What should my landing pages look like? What type of information should we be asking students for versus just focusing on what we need, to fill out a document or a spreadsheet.
I would also call back to the brand conversation. What's your voice? Talking to students, and make sure that your voice is apparent in the way that you phrase those questions.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so we are now at the point where we can take questions from the audience if people have them. Let me just take a peek and see. Okay, friends. Last call if you have any questions for Stephanie or me. Otherwise, we'll wrap and you can enjoy the rest of your Thursday afternoon.
This has been so much fun, Angela. Thank you. You run a good show.
I try. I try. And I think that everyone's brains are buzzing from the last hour. So I think we're in a good place to wrap. But thank you so much, Stephanie, for spending your time with us, your examples, your wisdom. It's always appreciated. And thank you for being a fabulous partner and bringing your gifts to our industry.
Anytime. It's a lot of fun to hang out with you all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And we will see you next month at the next one.
Woohoo!
Take care. Bye.